Thanks so much for sharing your stories, the stories of the learners that you kind of encounter every day in each and every different context in which you work. I think the underlying theme, one of the underlying themes at least that we see here, is that when adult learners recognize the skills they have and already know, that the confidence they get from that is really powerful. There's a strong economic argument to be made as well about the importance of a project like the Record of Achievement. Nova Scotia has one of the oldest populations in the country, and the labor force here is shrinking. By 2030, it is estimated that we will have about 100,000 less Nova Scotians of working age. Indeed, Nova Scotia has one of the lowest levels of labor force participation in the country. Only 71% of Nova Scotians of working age are currently participating in the workforce, and rates of participation are lower within African Nova Scotia communities, Aboriginal communities, and among people with disabilities. The consensus from the research and public consultations conducted by the Irony Report suggests that Nova Scotia needs to attract more people, especially immigrants. I forgot to tell you to turn the slide. Attract more people, especially immigrants and entrepreneurs, to live in Nova Scotia. Find more effective ways to upgrade and build on the skills of the people who are already here. And reach out and incorporate marginally attached individuals in groups with low or no qualifications and to kind of incorporate them into the workforce. So, problems that the Record of Achievement are trying to tackle. At present, learners within ALP programs have really nothing palpable to show for the things that they have accomplished within those programs. These same learners, those without high school diplomas, are at a disadvantage because employers are asking for high school diplomas whether they need them to do those jobs or not. At the same time, employers are seeing high turnover rates because they are hiring people with high school diplomas or higher, with higher levels of learning for those jobs, and those jobs don't require a higher level of skills to do. So the challenge is for us to help employers to better understand the skills that are required to do the jobs that need to be done. And another challenge is to help individuals recognize and be able to articulate the skills that they already have and identify employability skills gaps so that they can work on those skills and be incorporated and take a job in the workforce. So, the Nova Scotia Core Employability Skills Framework, also known as the NACIS framework, is designed to increase Nova Scotia's labor force participation rate by addressing the overlapping needs of three key groups in Nova Scotia. The first group, and the most important for many, and for you in the room, are adult learners. The NACIS framework supports the development of the Record of Achievement and the Nova Scotia Skills Record for adult learners who may never achieve their adult education diploma or their GED. And it allows individuals to effectively demonstrate and articulate their skills. That's theoretically what it's designed to do. For adult learning programs, the NACIS framework provides standards that can be used to articulate learning objectives in employment-focused programs. It also provides a common criteria against which learner assessment can be selected and interpreted. The third group that we're trying to reach with the NACIS framework are employers in Nova Scotia. The NACIS framework supports the development of ideal Record of Achievement profiles, which identify the core employability skills required by individuals to do a specific job effectively. These profiles can be used to inform hiring and training. The framework provides a standard against which to assess for the so-called soft skills that employers want, but are hard to articulate or prove. So, So what is the Nova Scotia Core Employability Skills Framework? The NACIS framework identifies the core employability skills that are essential for all jobs. Employers can teach people that the technical skills they need for a job, but have identified that what they really need are employees with the essential or core employability skills now deemed to be the key predictors of success in the workplace. So we have personal management basics or soft skills. I think if we flip the chart there. Right. So, actually, please go back. Sorry, I thought that there was a larger visual of the wheel. So in the middle of the wheel, we have their personal management basics or soft skills, which are identified as lacking in many technically skilled employees. If you picture a gap skills pyramid, at the top level, you have the specific or technical skills required to do jobs. At the middle level, we have essential skills that you assess in your learners and ALP programs. And at the bottom level, you have personal management basics. And what we're finding is you cannot effectively assess the middle or top levels of a skills pyramid without mastering at least some personal management basics. These are not the employability skills that get people to work or to class on a daily basis. Hence, we felt the need for the Nova Scotia standard that is not academically focused, but rather focused on core employability skills. So it's important to know that the Nova Scotia Core Employability Skills Framework is currently undergoing a process of validation through the Record of Achievement pilot. And there will probably be changes being made to the document and to the wheel itself that you see here. The changes will be made based on knowledge gained from the Record of Achievement project, as well as through consultations with employers and other stakeholders before it's ready for publication and to be rolled out into any programs. The framework itself is organized across 4 competencies, and those competencies are highlighted in color that you see here. We have communication in blue, reasoning in yellow, continuous learning, and personal management basics in the middle. Each competency contains an array of skills and sub-skills, or pieces of the pie that you see, that are organized as follows. So within communication in the blue section, we have text reading and document reading, text writing and document writing, listening and speaking. Within the reasoning section in the yellow, we have numeracy and the management of resources, finances, and measurement, as well as decision-making and problem-solving and organization and planning. The green section is called continuous learning, and that's the competency. And the skills are strategies for learning and the use of information and communications technology. And at the core of the framework, in plum, we'll call it, we have the personal management basics. So we have self-management. In the self-management section, which is the top section there, we have self-awareness, self-respect, responsible behavior, stress management, positive attitude, and initiative. And in the section on cooperating with others, we have interpersonal skills, respect for others, respect for expectations, honesty and integrity, reliability, and personal presentation. So although the composition and level of skills may vary across jobs, the skills that you need to do, the jobs you do, most are required in some combination in order to gain employment in Nova Scotia. These employment-related skills can be transferred from one job to another and can be acquired in the home, in the community, and in the workplace. And we've seen this with the learner stories that we've heard already today. Now we can change it. Thanks. So the skills within the communications, reasoning, and continuous learning competencies are developed through a series of standards, okay? And so first we have a definition of what each skill is. For example, in the communication section, we have reading, writing, listening and speaking, document reading, and document writing. So there's a definition of what that skill is. And so it clearly demarcates, theoretically, what each skill area is supposed to mean when you're assessing individuals against the framework. And the next section, we have the standards, okay? So each skill area is developed through a series of standards. And the standards define the performance of a skill along a continuum of 3 levels that are roughly equivalent to the ALP levels that you know. And the standards are summary descriptions intended to depict skill performance at each of the 3 levels. So we have level 1, you have level 2, and you have level 3 in the top section here. And then below this section of the framework, we have performance indicators. And performance indicators, which are below here, provide an overview of the underlying abilities indicative of the skill and the level. They describe what an adult is able to do and what they can demonstrate at each individual skill level. So this is how the NACIS framework theoretically is supposed to work. We have a standard, and you should be able to measure, you should be able to still illustrate using different assessment tools what individuals can do at each of, what they can demonstrate at whatever level they're capable of doing. That's what the NACIS framework is for. I've explained to you the structure of the NACIS framework and what it's for, because really the Record of Achievement project is supported by the NACIS framework. And much like the NACIS framework, it is a project that is still in development itself. We're calling it a project because we're not really sure how the process works, and we'll talk about that as we go along in this presentation. The purpose of the Record of Achievement is to reach out and support marginally attached individuals and groups with low or no qualifications to gain access to the workforce. And this is the level 1 to level 3 learners. I'm working in partnership first with the Prior Learning Assessment Center and now with the Nova Scotia Community College. The Adult Education Division within Labor and Advanced Education is developing a process for validating the skills and abilities of adults who have not yet completed their GEDs. The project is based on the belief that individuals can legitimate learning through their life experiences, and that this learning can be assessed and recognized for the purpose of gaining entry into to employment. So possible points of entry for the Record of Achievement project, we've seen that possible points of entry with the instructors we have here in ASAL programs, the Department of Justice. We also see possible points of entry in Career Nova Scotia centers, workplace initiatives, the Department of Community Services. So there's the Record of Achievement, we see the potential for it in a lot of different areas. The Record of Achievement was initially conceived as a credentialed document, which provide learners within ALP programs with something palpable, again, to demonstrate their learning and their skills. It would be a credential signed by the minister, which would provide adult learners with something to show for their work within adult education programs. So using a combination of standardized and RPL-based assessment tools, our aim was to use the competencies in the NACIS framework as a standard against which to assess adult learners, and capturing the knowledge gained from both formal and non-formal learning that they've had throughout their lives. The Record of Achievement document would illustrate the competencies and skill levels demonstrated by each individual learner, and then a NACIS wheel that we saw earlier would light up accordingly. So we have a kind of lit up a wheel here that demonstrates, for example, what a learner might have demonstrated at different skill levels. So for example, the darker areas of blue, you have level 2 of document reading. Over there you have level 1 of document writing, and so on. So that's kind of what a wheel would look like if it was lit up based on what a learner had demonstrated within each competency and each of the individual skill levels in the NACIS framework. So now we come to the Record of Achievement pilot project. The overall goal of the Record of Achievement pilot project is to test and evaluate the NACIS framework, to test and evaluate a variety of assessment tools within the context of the ROA, and to work out a kind of curriculum for assessor training towards the development of a Record of Achievement. So the number of participants within the Record of Achievement pilot, we have 12 participants from community learning organizations, we have 12 from the Nova Scotia Community College, and we have 4 from the Department of Justice. The target groups for the Record of Achievement pilot project were adults with barriers to employment as a result of having not yet achieved their grade 12 equivalency. So pilot activities include an assessor orientation for the Record of Achievement pilot project, which was held at the NSCC Waterfront campus on the 20th of November in 2014. We have the ROA assessor course. We have learner assessment, so the ROA assessors are trained to use the tools, and then they assess learners that they recruit for the program. We plan to have a final moderation session on the 1st of June of this year, at which we'll learn a lot more about learner experience, assessor experiences. We'll talk about the tool, we'll talk about the NACIS framework and how the assessment of individuals and the mapping of those assessments to the NACIS framework and how well that worked. And finally, we have the proof of concept evaluation. So we're evaluating the pilot and the program that we're in the midst of developing and looking forward to developing. And the proof of evaluation framework will help us take us back to the conceptual phases of the ROA project stage and figure out what next steps might be for the project. It's important to know that a number of significant challenges and issues have arisen since the opening of the Record Achievement course and the piloting of the assessment tools. Many of these challenges could only have been identified through a pilot process and have changed the scope of the project itself. For instance, based on the feedback from assessors, the assessors that we have here and other assessors, we have, for instance, scaled back on the number of assessments and tools that the assessors will be using, therefore decreasing the amount of assessments with learners within the pilot. We found that, and as you'll hear, it was just a too heavy a workload. As a consequence, during this pilot, we will not assess for all of the skill levels that you see in the wheel here. We weren't able to do that. What we've also learned to date, and what we learn and the information that we collect from the moderation session and the project evaluation will be invaluable, and this information will inform next steps in the Record of Achievement the Record of Achievement project itself.